Welcome to Movie Roundup today. I'm going to explain a horror movie called Final Destination 5. Sans Lovitin is on a bus with his girlfriend and his other classmates. Roadwork. The vehicle passes through a bridge under construction when one of the workers stands in front and the driver brakes the bus abruptly. What makes Sam wobble? Pricking his finger with a wire seat. The boy sees as the television and the radio begin to fail, giving it a bad feeling. Suddenly Sam feels a strong gust of wind causing the bridge moves, and quickly a part of the structure begins to break in front of them. The guy takes his girlfriend Molly, him, and everyone tries to get off quickly from the bus. Another of the girls, named Candace, jumps a barrier of concrete and grabs the railing of the bridge, but the entire segment breaks and the girl dies when falling into the water. Ella's boyfriend Peter Ella gets very sad because of the situation, but Sans tells him that they should run away fast if you don't want to die too. They try to escape, and at that moment we see Aisha confused leaving the bus toilet, which falls into the water at the few seconds. As they flee, the bridge in front of them keep collapsing and bad, and get save yourself by crossing through the town of bridge to the safe side of the structure. At that time, you listen to me. Olivia screams and the young man runs to help her escape. When Olivia is about to cross the metal beam, in the who is standing his part and the woman falls into the water. The girl is saved, but she is so when one of the cars in the bridge falls, a landing on it. Others try to flee while the bridge keep collapsing, where Sand sees her fellow Nate getting smashed by one of the steel cables, and his boss Dennis covered in a thick substance and hot. Peter and Sam's jump on it stable side of the bridge and hold on to the railing just before the rest of the bridge crumbles by disgrace. While they try to climb upwards, a van rolls up the edge end of the vehicle fall about heavy metal bars, which they cross. Peter and a large plate that cut in two. Asa suddenly Sandse rises from his strange nightmare and is so when one of the workers gets in front and the driver brakes the bus sharply. What makes Sam staggered, pricking his finger with a seat wire. The young man is given account that what he had was not a nightmare but a premonition, so that he gets scared and alerts all his companions of what is about pass Samuel with Molly, and although his companions at first some of them don't believe him, they get off the bus and manage to see what was happening so they can act in advance. Manage to flee in time. The group arrives at a safe area and go on the bridge, falling into the water, to which Peter asks Sam how he knew, but he didn't. He knows what to answer. The group is questioned by an investigator police, and Sat tells the subject that he has no idea what caused the collapse and that he only saw it in one premonition. The investigator does not believe him, and he thinks Sam is some kind of terrorist who planned everything, but in that moment an agent enters the room and reports that the bridge fell due to a wind damage. The next day we can see everyone survivors, Nisbos celebrating the funeral of his companions deceased. They talk and Sant swears not yet he can explain what happened, and soon time Dennis kicks off the ceremony, saying some emotional words. At the end everyone leaves, and Sham and Peter, they are surprised by a strange man. The subject tells them that death is not. She likes to be teased, and before leaving suggest they be careful at night. Zamba as usual to work from chef in a famous restaurant, and then goes to the house of his million girlfriend to talk with her. Things between them have not been good lately since Sam has a unique job opportunity. Paris, which would imply that they have to break up the next day. We see Candice about to start your training gymnastics. The girl does not feel very well, and she thinks she shouldn't do it, but she motivates him to train by reminding him that he is missing little for the championship. So Candice climbs on the beam and she starts with her usual routine. In that moment, a loose screw comes loose from the air conditioning system, falling on the beam. She does not see it, but for lucky she manages not to step on it and ends the exercise. Candice is going to practice in the bars, and at that moment another of the gymnasts who is in life steps on the screw. What makes you fall from pain to one side, throwing a container with powdered chalk. A fan blows the dust towards Candice, which enters her eyes, making the girl let go she from the bar and fell to the ground abruptly, causing his tragic death. He calls the hospital to comfort his friend Peter, and at one point manages to see the strange funeral subject in the distance. But when I blinked, she was no longer there. At another day, the group goes to work, but the offices are almost empty as their companions died in the collapse of the bridge, and they decide to drink something to cope. Aisha, who takes the opportunity to visit the desks of his deceased colleagues and steal her belongings, where she finds some coins and a certificate for a massage session. Free, the boy goes to the place and the secretary accompanies him to the room after an Asian woman. She walks in and starts making strangers to him massages that do her a lot of good, and then she brings a set of needles with which she practices acupuncture. At the end of the lady asks him to stay still for half an hour and leaves the room. Moments later, the ash of a incense falls on a towel, starting a fire. The boy screams, but no one hears him, so he tries stop and slip, falling to the ground and spilling an entire bottle of alcohol all over the room. Is then when his phone starts ringing and the vibration makes a burning candle fall on the alcohol, setting fire to everything. The place to Isaac goes back, believing that he was saved, but in that moment a heavy metal Buddha falls on the head, killing him on the spot. The boys gather outside the scene, surprised by what happened. Where see the strange guy one more time. Sam approaches to speak to him, and the man tells them the truth, saying that they were destined to die on that bridge and that death will take them one by one. In the next few days the boys they worry, and before leaving the subject says that the only way they have survive is that each one killed one person with what they would take away the years remaining health and would add them in them, and that only in this way will there be a balance where death will leave them in peace. Sans remembers that in the premonition of him Molly, he managed to save himself because of what he believes she is not destined to die. Guys decide to go talk about this with Olivia, and at that moment we see that the girl is in a clinic about to surgery of sight. The doctor costs on the machine, and at that moment she realizes note that the medical history of the girl is incomplete, so she leaves the room. That's when a glass of water falls on the plug to which she was connected to the laser machine, making it fail and causing Olivia a very severe burn to the eye with extreme pain. The girl gets up and she accidentally trips, passing through the window and dying by falling about one of the cars on the street. Boys are horrified, and in the morning next Sam makes a discovery disturbing. The boy realizes that people they die in the same order as in their vision, and concludes that the next will be Nick Knight. Remember what the subject Stranger told them, so he decides. Sacrifice one of the workers. So the boy activates the crane and then he calls the most unpleasant worker. The two argue, and in a moment the hook of the crane falls on the platform in that the guy is standing, killing him. Fall after the accident. The boys they meet, and Nate confesses that he planned kill him so he can save himself. Sansley. Tell others about your discovery. About the order of deaths, saying that if everything is correct, the next in to die would be Dennis. At that time Dennis arrives and a key falls on a machine, throwing the tool at all velocity over the subject's face and killing him on the spot. Back home, Sam doesn't believe all of this is true and he thinks it was all a big coincidence. So he tells Molly that he will not kill nobody to save himself, and then he goes to work in the restaurant kitchen. Sam talks to his boss and tells her that he will accept the job offer in Paris since his girlfriend decided finally to go to France with him. End the day. The restaurant is completely empty and Sam invites Molly to dinner to celebrate the great and difficult decision to make to move. In that moment we see the researcher of the police outside the building, and shortly time Peter shows up and knocks on the door, asking to enter. The three sit in the table and you can see that Peter is quite nervous. Sans offers him something to eat, but the boy tells him no, and then asks if he is the one next on the list. Sam affirms, and Peter he tells her that he was about to kill several people on the street, but he comments that he didn't because he couldn't kill someone who didn't deserve to die. Peter mentions that none of his companions deserved what happened to them, and he feels it is unfair that Molly is the only one that in the vision of Sant got survive. So he pulls out a gun and he decides to kill her instead. Then Sam flips the table and the two they take the opportunity to hide in the kitchen. The boy confronts Peter, telling him that I better kill him, but Peter tells him that that wouldn't do any good. He hits him with the butt of the gun and goes on looking for Molly. The girl takes a knife and the subject with the gun he appears, but he realizes that he is the police investigator wrong and is surprised, and at that moment Peter shoots the man to death. Very worried badly, and tells Peter that he is already safe and asks her to leave. But the boy tells him that he doesn't think spend the rest of his life jail, so he decides to kill them all. Sam appears pouncing on him. Boy and the two struggle until they are manages to kill him with a skewer. The kitchen. The two young people rejoice much since they were able to survive the Peter attack, and they would have outwitted the death. 2 weeks later we can see Sham and Molly inside a plane about to take off, bound for Paris. Then from takeoff Sans feels that something is not goes well, and on the plane they begin to strange things happen. The boy pricks his finger with it seat, and seconds later he sees one of the aircraft engines on fire, which makes the plane exploded in the air, killing them both. Minutes later we can see Nay having a drink in a bar when one of the pieces of the plane that just exploded falls on him, killing him too. Remember to leave your like, that helps a lot to the channel. Subscribe and activate the notifications to see more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and until next time.